Gannon, emergency room.
Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series.
Welcome to Battle of the Network shows. I'm Mike. I'm here with Rick as always, and today we're going to be talking about a medical drama called Medical Center from the early 70s. Did it actually start in the 60s?
Yeah, this ran 7 years and
Wow.
started in 1967, I believe, and ran all the way up to 1975. I think it was 68 to 75, something like that. So this episode was from 1974, but the 6th season of it.
Wow.
Yeah, 171 episode. Yeah, Medical Center was a long-running CBS show, but one that I don't think has been widely seen in the last couple decades.
I don't think I was familiar with it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew the name of its star, Chad Everett, and honestly, the only thing I know, I've seen him in Mulholland Falls.
Yeah.
And I saw him on a rerun of Tattletales.
Ah, well, I mean, that's an interesting thing about, I can remember actually, now that you mention it, when I was in college, as you know, I majored in 1970s and 1980s television.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my introductory classes, actually I did have an arts class, that the professor made the comment that of all shows, medical shows were the most, as far as typecasting the actors, it was hardest to escape typecasting if you were a doctor in a medical show because the audience just identifies you with you so much. Huh. At least that's what he said at the time. And we've had ER and the likes of George Clooney have gone on to other things, but that was a pretty widely held belief for quite a while, I think. And Chad Everett was definitely an instance of that because I think he did have troubles escaping that sort of typecasting after Medical Center.
Because he seems, well, I guess after Medical Center, the Westerns wouldn't have been an option, but he seems like someone who would have fit in. And maybe he did before Medical Center. I just know so little about him. Yeah,
I think this was his big deal. And he did have like a couple of shows that didn't last long. And, I found an article with him from People magazine just years after the fact, sort of bemoaning the fact that I think it was... he had some show called McKenna on ABC, like this, the 80s, I think, or something that he was trying to, like some family drama or something that he was trying to get going. But I don't know if he resented being identified with this Joe Gannon character, but I think he had a hard time escaping it. And he actually said something interesting, and he said, kind of referring to the fact that this Dr. Gannon was such a saint, he said, and so perfect, he said that he begged the producers to let him lose a patient every now and then to make it more interesting, because he didn't think there was much challenge to the role. But yeah, Chad Everett and co-star James Daly, who, as far as I know, was sort of like the authority figure and mentor in the show. That's what he was most known for. Medical Center as well.
And they're the only regular stars up it.
There's Audrey Totter, who is known for film noir and things. She was like, I guess, sort of the head nurse for a while after the first couple seasons, and she was, I think, one of the other main regular character. Other than that, it was sort of like, with many medical shows, essentially like an anthology in the sense that you'd have different people coming in with different stories, but in Medical Center, it always focused on one topic, one illness of the disease of the week. I guess every now and then they'd mix things up and send Chad Everett out into the world to do other stuff, but most of the time it was patient comes into the medical center, which we don't really know. I think it's just University Medical Center,
right?
At some unnamed college apparently. But patient comes in there, has a problem, they solve it, and usually Gannon gets a couple of speeches.
Okay.
He gets worked up about something or other. Not quite to the level of Quincy,
no,
but more so than maybe Marcus Welby.
Okay.
I mean, to me, I was more familiar with Marcus Welby than I was Medical Center. I didn't watch Medical Center at all until Warner Archive started releasing the DVDs and then put it on Warner Archive Instant. But I knew of the series, but I couldn't remember ever watching it.
Yeah. So it has like a kind of like great credit sequence.
It really does.
Just like, and it seems like this is going to be like ER, like just exciting, and I mean the music's exciting, and there's like that kind of late '60s sort of, I guess like a pop art sort of thing going on with the, different frames and different colors and flashing, and is definitely not ER paced.
Yeah, and it's got like the aerial views almost like Dallas later or something like that, and this like dynamic music.
Yeah,
it's almost like Viva Las Vegas, combined with SWAT or something like that. Yeah, and to me, I think this is maybe the most exciting theme song with the blandest show in TV history that I could think of. It really is. I mean, it's Lalo Schifrin who composed the Mission Impossible theme song.
Yeah, okay.
He did this one too, and I was a little curious about how this the song came to be, because that's easily the best part of the whole show, I think. And so there's an interview with him with the one of those Television Academy interviews they have online.
Yeah.
And I found a link, and I clicked a link that started like halfway in this one segment, and to be honest, I thought the interview was as bland as most episodes of Medical Center. I kind of almost fell asleep during it. He was talking about Mission Impossible, and it was fine, but he's an older gentleman, and he was talking very deliberately about Mission Impossible, and he never got to Medical Center. I didn't make it. I don't. So, I maybe there's an interesting story behind how he composed it, but hey, he did a great job.
Yeah.
And to me, Mission Impossible is more well remembered, but this sequence beats just about anything from that era. Mm-hmm. It's really cool.
Yeah, given our maybe lack of exuberance about this show, why are we talking about it?
Well, I think it's medical dramas are an important genre that we hadn't really touched on yet. Mm-hmm. It's easier to find this one right now for us than Marcus Welby.
Yeah.
And in the time frame, I mean, I guess we do have some other ones in the time. Trapper John, MD, who's a little bit seen elsewhere.
Elsewhere, yeah.
Those are things that we could maybe revisit in the future. These are a little bit earlier. And actually, Medical Center was on about the same time as Marcus Welby. Marcus Welby was another one that was on a long time. But Marcus Welby was actually a bigger hit than Medical Center. Medical Center was okay. Marcus Welby was like the number one show a year or two.
Wow.
But hey, 7 years and 171 episodes is nothing to sneeze at. This particular episode, I think we chose because of the special guest star, and sort of key person of the era. Again, sort of one of those people that was big back then that people might not know very, very much right now. And I think the time is right to introduce him in proper fashion. Right.
We kind of mentioned him in passing in our Real People episode. Mm-hmm. But I'll let you do the honors.
The great Marjoe Gortner.
Hallelujah!
A Pentecostal child evangelist turned actor.
Yeah. He not just turned actor, so he did he basically, I don't know that he lost faith, but he lost at least a desire to be an evangelist, right? And he made a documentary called Marjoe, in which he exposed the fraud behind what he was doing.
Yeah, and he wasn't just like when we say evangelist, we're talking like fire and brimstone, faith healing, and pass the plate around and that kind of deal.
Right.
I mean, the whole deal as far as exploiting people, really.
Yeah, and he had some change of heart about that and exposed the con.
And I think he became maybe sort of a countercultural figure for doing that.
And it is a fascinating documentary.
Yeah, he started when he was like 4 years old or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And his parents were in the business.
Yeah, and he's a very charismatic guy, as you'd expect. Mm-hmm. And I can see. I'm guessing what happened. He made the documentary, and an agent or somebody said, "Oh, look at you on film," because he's very unique looking, and he's got like this a lot of blonde curly hair and big blue eyes, and and they were like, maybe you should act.
Yeah, yeah. I think we could highly recommend the documentary.
Yeah.
If you find it, and
the other main credit I know is Star Crash.
Yeah.
An early '80s Star Wars knockoff. It's not very good.
Yeah, and Food of the Gods, kind of one of the monster or natural disaster, nature gone mad kind of genre of the '70s.
Okay.
So that was another. So yeah, he wound up not being in. He wound up in genre movies.
Yeah.
And making guest appearances on TV shows throughout the '70s, I think.
Right, and the Star Crash features the Hoff too.
Yes.
Anyway, so and we like Marjoe.
Yeah, Marjoe's cool. He's like you say, he's got a charisma that I think translates to the small screen as well. And this episode called Demi-God is one in which you get to see some of his sort of him at work as far as doing the evangelical.
Mm-hmm. He's flying in on his helicopter right now. I don't know
Yes.
if folks can hear that, but
Yes, the great Marjoe keeping an eye on us, saying hi to our audience.
really does sound like he's about to land.
Boy, when we said we wanted to give him a grand introduction, I didn't expect he was going to land on the roof and come right there in the middle of the podcast.
Boy. Okay. Yeah, Marjoe's kind of playing. I guess he's playing a version of himself in a way.
He really is. Yeah, that seems like I'm sure there's a lot of parallels, and maybe somebody wrote an episode specifically based around him. I'd like to know. I don't know if that's the case, but it certainly seems like they did. Like they built the whole thing around him.
Right, and maybe given his mission to expose that, he was probably open to it.
Yeah.
Here's another venue to do that.
Right. Although now the episode delves into this territory of faith healing and the legitimacy of it, but it doesn't do so in a really muckraking way. It treats these characters pretty well. Even the quote unquote the closest thing to a villain in the piece, which is his father.
Yeah.
Even he comes across as sort of a sympathetic figure.
Yeah, ultimately.
Yeah, it's not seen as, it's not really, it doesn't come across more as a takedown of the whole industry or the whole thing. It comes across as more like a look at this one family and the problems they faced and how they sort of resolve them. So it's ultimately kind of, it doesn't take a real strong stand, I would say.
You're probably right. And it's hard to tell because Chad Everett really only has like 2 gears. So even when he's angry about
determined and really determined.
I was thinking more like, well, yeah, that works too, but
more like
low key and medium key.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, he gets worked up once or twice.
Yeah, he every now and then he gets a little bit more self-righteous in some other episodes, I'll say. Yeah. I've watched a little bit more. One thing that I think is interesting about Medical Center is that at the time it was considered pretty controversial. These issues of the week, they get into some things, but they don't really. They do it in a pretty safe way. I mean, it is a CBS show, and even in 1974, it was a network show. But I think Marcus Welby was much tamer.
Yeah,
that was more of a family sort of individual practice show. This is more intended to be sort of like topical,
right?
An issue of the week kind of deal.
Yeah.
So, fraudulent faith healing was probably not one of the more controversial topics they had, but they did have other ones that featured issues that were definitely more edgy at the time.
Yeah.
But I think if you look back on it now, from what I've seen, it looks very tame. And the show itself is not exactly made in a dynamic way. It's pretty workmanlike production, I would say.
There was like a scene where he walked in the other guy's office, and something about like the way the office looked and the way he walked in and closed the door just very briefly reminded me of the Garth Marenghi, which, if you don't know, that is a British comedy. It's made as if it's like a lost show from, I guess, from the 90s, but I mean, it looks. I don't know, the quality. It has a lot of funny, and it's set in a hospital, but then it's
deliberately
like,
poor production values.
Yeah. This has better production values, but it was something about just the way he did it too, and like there was maybe a longer pause than necessary.
That's good. Yeah, it's competent.
Yeah.
by all means.
Yes.
But there's nothing in it that suggests like the excitement or the sort of, looking at new approaches and at different angles and stuff like that theme, that opening sequence
Right.
would indicate, like you said, like a show like ER, which was really groundbreaking, and Medical Center is definitely, it's a much more conventional television drama that happens to have this really exciting opening sequence.
Yeah. And I guess Gannon is a generalist.
Well, he's supposedly a professor of surgery, but I don't understand the professor part at all.
But just surgery, and I mean, maybe in the 70s, medicine was still had not specialized as much as it is now, where you're a heart surgeon or you're a thoracic surgeon or a
right. His whole
respiratory
deal,
or whatever.
Yeah, his whole deal is supposed to be that he's a brilliant surgeon, but yet, like every episode, he's making like diagnoses and yeah. So I don't. There's a lot I don't understand about. You really don't get too deep into the workings of Medical Center. There's like a commission. I mean, he's apparently is one of the big shots there, but he answers to his superior, and there's like a hospital staff that makes like big picture decisions and things like that. So he's got his fingers in all kinds of different things, but at heart, I think he's supposed to be an assistant professor of surgery.
Okay.
Whatever that means at a university hospital.
Yeah. I mean, he teaches.
Because I don't.
He mentions in this episode like some lecture he's going to give.
Yeah, I personally haven't seen him any episodes really where the delve into that academic aspect of it. It's all like him at the. Matter of fact, I haven't seen. Now there's 171 episodes, and I've seen a handful of them, but I haven't seen too many that really get into his personal life at all. It seems the show, I think, is very much focused on the workplace aspect.
Yeah. Also, I just thought of this. I didn't notice, but maybe it had this, and I just didn't. The medical show cliche of PA announcements.
Dr. Gannon, emergency room.
Like just, in the background.
Yeah.
Dr. Gannon, emergency
So
room.
and so report to,
Right.
But maybe they were there.
No, I think you're right. I think that's something that's not in there. And as a matter of fact, I think
Dr. Gannon, emergency room.
that's actually distinct from some of the other medical shows. There's not. I don't think there's a whole lot going on in the background in this.
Yeah, it didn't seem like to be a lot of bustle either.
Right. It's very staid.
Yeah.
The whole aspect of it focused almost on this one. There's a very singular focus to a given episode of Medical Center.
They focused on patient and his dealings with the patient and his wardrobe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy. That's one distinctive thing. He's got the sideburns going.
Yeah.
He's got
like the sideburns and like hair over his ears, and then these suits. Man, he's sporting everything 70s.
Yeah.
And this takes place over a number of days, so we see a number of outfits. He's got a brown suit, always big ties. Mm-hmm. There's some plaid going on, some like a pink striped shirt.
Yes.
He's definitely he must have some time off to shop.
He's sharp.
Yes.
He dresses sharp, that's for sure.
He does, and and then the Marjoe and the character of his father both have some interesting, a lot of plaid going on too.
Yes.
Marjoe, in fact, had I think a checked jacket that when he was far from the camera was really not probably a good choice. Was causing some interference in the.
Yeah, they must have told Chad Everett, "Hey, look, don't worry about your character not having a real personality. Your clothing will tell the audience all it needs to know about Joe Gannon. Yeah. Okay, that's all I need to know. I can work with that."
Yeah. And he had scrubs on at the end too.
Yeah.
He did perform some surgery. One thing I liked about that, the scrubs, is that he was like sweaty. I was like, that's a nice realistic touch.
Well, and from what I understand, the show did have some commitment to realism. They had a medical advisor who was the same guy who worked on MASH as their medical advisor.
Okay.
So they had a commitment to being, realistic, not just totally sensationalistic. They wanted to ground everything in actual medical reality.
Yeah. How do you think Gannon would have felt doing surgery with Hawkeye?
I don't think they would have matched well.
I don't think so.
I don't think Gannon would appreciate the wisecracking approach.
Right.
I do not think that would work at all.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, this episode starts with the illness. We need to talk about that. Returning Battle of the Network shows actress Meredith Baxter at the
Yes,
time.
another returning favorite here.
Yeah, she's handing out flyers to volunteers to pass out that her husband David Marjoe is going to be doing a big to do at the University Stadium, and then she passes out in the parking lot.
Yes, it's very dramatic.
She ends up at the medicals, and someone brings in Gannon to consult,
Dr. Gannon, emergency room.
like another doctor.
Yeah, apparently Gannon's the only one around there they can trust to get to the bottom of things, and he suspects Hodgkin's disease, I guess.
Yeah, and then it gets complicated because her husband is this famous faith healer. So does she go with his advice and get biopsies and tests and possibly surgery, or does she just let Marjoe take care of it?
Well,
it's really a big question, isn't it?
It depends on how much you trust Marjoe,
Yeah,
and she trusts him quite a bit, apparently.
she does. Now, at first, when so he's out of town doing his deal elsewhere. She was doing advanced work. When he shows up, he's like, "Oh, go ahead and do the tests," which seems to make her question things a little bit. She gives some puzzling looks.
Right.
Like, why would he do that if he's a faith healer?
Right.
Which to me suggested he knew he was a fraud. But later we find out that that's not the case.
Yeah, I guess I interpret it as he's got just more of a complex version of it. Like, he's like, well, find out what the problem is.
Yeah,
Maybe it's nothing.
Right, yeah, because he does say that later. He's
And
like,
then,
now that there's a diagnosis, I can heal you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he's willing to, let them find out what it is. He just doesn't necessarily think they have to rely on them to
Right.
cure it.
Yeah. So then they do verify that it's Hodgkin's. And that's when he steps in to heal her. And he does it, but he also gets definitely pushed that way by his dad.
Yeah, his dad, Harmon, who's played by John Marley, is a character actor who's got a...
That guy's awesome.
He is. He's got a very, and he played like mad scientists and stuff, and was in a Twilight Zone and an Outer Limits and stuff. If you look at him, I mean, he's one of those things, I think you'd recognize him if you watched a lot of TV of that era, but he's got a certain look to him. He just looks like either a mad scientist, or who else I think he looks like a guy, the kind of guy you'd expect to see walking around the streets with a sign saying the end of the world is near.
He does. He's got quite a head of hair.
Yeah.
Almost like a mad scientist. Is good, like Einstein with a little bit of a haircut.
Yes.
But then he's got like a kind of a thin mustache, and he had a good deep voice. Definitely, I think good casting there.
Yeah.
For just that kind of guy, and as we learn about his character, I mean, he grew up with a con man father essentially, and this is who he is. He's a huckster.
Right.
And you can kind of see that. And his wife, who's younger, seems to have a little bit of a drinking problem.
Yeah, there's an interesting dynamic going on here because, so his wife, played by Jacqueline Scott, I believe is her name, but she played Richard Kimball's sister in a couple episodes on The Fugitive.
Okay.
Was on a lot of TV again in the 60s. And there's this kind of thing going on in this family where it seems like the dad sort of, quote unquote, saved the wife.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like... I don't know if you got this. It's like they take these vulnerable women.
Yeah.
And maybe they're genuinely trying to help them, but
Right.
they wind up with them after taking these vulnerable women that have substance abuse problems, right?
Yeah, like she was in the drunk tank essentially, and Meredith Baxter's character. It sounded basically had been like a hippie.
Yeah.
I guess would be the nice way to say. I mean, all but says she was she says she did every drug.
Yeah, she's like some kind of burnout apparently.
Yeah, and kind of sleeping around, and that's more implied. But,
Yeah.
I mean, as implied, as clear as possible as you could probably be on TV in that
Right.
age, that era. But yeah, that's an interesting aspect of
Right,
of
and
both of them.
she says that and so Meredith Baxter says that essentially says she owes everything
Yeah,
to Marjoe because he rescued her and he took her in and believed in her and kind
Right.
of showed her that she was more than where her life was going, and so it's kind of an interesting dynamic there because since the father has the same thing going on with the wife.
yeah, and her another weird association I made. Something about her performance, just a little bit like when she was maybe even the first scene we saw her, but was pouring drinks for herself. Remind me a little bit of Grace Zabriskie on playing Susan's mom on Seinfeld,
Interesting.
and kind of like muttering to herself.
Huh. Yeah, I had
Like that she was, that character was this kind of character. Like,
yeah.
Like, I mean, this is not an unfamiliar sort of character, maybe.
Oh,
but,
that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. It's a good call.
But so she's definitely drinking a little too much, and there's hints that she supposedly was healed of something by Marjoe. It takes a long time before we find out what the deal with that is.
Yeah.
But she's held up at these gatherings as one of his success stories.
Yeah, and there's a big machine going on.
Right, which is that's why the dad is encouraging him to not take her out of the hospital and do all this, because you got to keep the machine.
Yeah, it would wreck the image.
Yeah.
Like if this big faith healer guy
Right.
let his wife be healed by a hospital,
Yeah.
it would ruin the gimmick.
Right. And they definitely, I mean, I guess they live in LA or wherever this is set, and they have a swank apartment there. And,
Yeah.
you
And they refer to like all the tickets they're selling, and I guess they got this TV operation going. So, you don't get a whole lot of like detail about that, but it's made clear that it's a business is what it is, definitely.
Yeah.
Again, kind of going right into Marjoe's like personal background, it seems like.
Right. Although, again, like the more we learn about him, I mean, he seems, I mean, sure, he knows it's a business, but that's not his approach to it.
No, he's sincere.
Yeah, he is. I think he believes in himself, in what he's doing,
Yeah.
that he's healing people. And, of course, Gannon is uncomfortable with all of this. He's a man of science, doctor. Eventually, Harmon, the dad, gives him some pamphlets about various people that got healed, and he goes and looks through medical dictionaries or something.
Yeah.
He finds out what happened to all these people, and they're all, disasters quickly after.
Yeah, one of Gannon's big thing in this episode is trying to convince her to let herself, to convince everybody else to let her, be healed conventionally.
Yeah.
To go through medical treatment, really.
Right.
And that's kind of his big mission.
And she really is she's as much a stumbling block as everyone else, or maybe even more so.
Yeah.
Like she
That's
won't.
a good point.
Because I assume, things have changed more now, of course, and had probably changed enough by then, but I assume she has some control over those choices and for her treatment. But,
yeah. I think it seems like she's as worried about what it would do to her husband
yeah.
as anybody else is.
And she believes in him.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like almost like she has a need to believe in him, too, though, because he helped her. That,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's some of that going on, that
Right.
that he can't be a fraud because he saved her, and
Yeah.
who knows what would happen. They basically need each other, as Gannon pretty much says explicitly
Right.
later in the episode.
Yeah, yeah. And so, Marjoe, David, he lays hands on her, and then she feels better, and she
Yeah.
leaves, and she's going to be, they're going to use her at this event, bring her on stage, all of that. And,
Yeah, they kind of all cheerily walk out of the hospital and say, "Hey, I'm better now. Yeah,
Right.
it's great."
now the Harmon's wife, the stepmom, is, I mean, she's definitely, like, she sees this clearly for what it is, and
Right.
is concerned that that Meredith Baxter's character is going to die if she doesn't get the right treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And she's pushing, and then Harmon is pushing back and actually slaps her.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
There's definitely a complicated relationship going on there. Mm-hmm. She mostly bites her tongue and lets this go on, but she's not happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the drinking. Anytime in a TV show you see a character like a wife drinking, it's
Right.
because she doesn't agree with what's going on.
Right.
That's your way of knowing that she's not on board with this.
Yeah. So eventually they bring her to this event, and she goes on stage and she gives a little testimonial, and then when she comes off stage, she faints again, right?
Yeah, she collapses, and it's clear that this ain't gonna work.
So they get her back to the medical center, but they're still resisting this, or at least Harmon is resisting it, and Marjoe is too. I can't call him by his character's name.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
Because Marjoe is such a cool name. Are there any other Marjoes out there?
I don't know of any Marjoes.
Never, worked with a Marjoe. Or,
Yeah,
hey, how's it going, Marjoe?
it's good we haven't had to call him Marjoe Gortner to distinguish him from
Right.
Marjoe Smith or Marjoe Franklin,
Yeah.
any of the other ones.
Right. Like, I'm surprised he used the Gortner.
Yeah.
Like, why did he need that? His movie was named after him.
Yeah. Was there somebody else that already had a SAG card named Marjoe?
Right.
So he had to go by Marjoe Gortner. Marjoe A. Gortner.
Right.
In Food of the Gods.
So, and I believe it's the Lorelei is the character's name. Finally, just like tells Harmon, you gotta tell him the truth.
Yeah.
And during this, we'd heard like Harmon keeps telling this story about his, I don't know, how he used to like sell coffee. His dad sold coffee beans off a buggy, and elixirs, and all this stuff. And then he became just like a preacher, and so he tells Marjoe the truth, which is that, and this again kind of playing into the real guy's background, like the character, like what at 9, faith healed Lorelei, who had some sort of back issue and couldn't walk. Well, it turns out she had already had surgery and been healed through the surgery, and the dad just used this as a plant.
Yeah, Marjoe's like, but I saw the X-rays, but the X-rays were taken, before the surgery and after. They manipulated.
I liked that. It was that detail that she actually had a problem.
Yeah.
And had actually been cured by a doctor. Like, because it could have just been, there was someone else's X-rays.
Yeah, right. But it's like, what an opportunity.
Yeah.
He was able to launch his kid's whole career based on the fortunate circumstance.
Right.
That she had this spinal problem that had to be corrected.
He's, lifelong grifter just looking for that.
Yeah.
That one opportunity.
It's a family tradition. Yeah, he's just waiting around to find an alcoholic with a back condition that he could manipulate into this circumstance and trick his kid.
Right.
Hey, we've all been there.
He had that planned from the beginning.
Fathers and sons have been doing this cycle for years.
Yeah.
This is no different.
No.
Yeah, Marjoe is crestfallen.
Yeah.
To learn this, though. Like you said, he thought that the whole thing was legit.
Right. So
apparently not doing any research on any of the other people he's been healing.
No, of course not.
He just
the machine
heals them and leaves them.
Probably told them, oh, they're fine.
Yeah.
Or made sure not to go back to certain places.
Yeah. He doesn't need to see any X-rays for them because he knows that this one instance happened, you know, 20 years ago. So why bother following up on the other ones?
And he was 9. So yeah.
So he's only gotten better at the healing thing as he's gotten older. So why not just assume that it all went according to plan?
Yeah. Anyway, that does lead him to finally give in and allow them to do surgery, and it turns out they caught it early enough, and she's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Hallelujah!
We get a brief little surgery scene.
Not very graphic.
No.
You don't see a lot of blood and guts on Medical Center.
I don't even think he asked for a sponge.
No. No, I don't think so. There are no mints or anything floating around in this one either. No junior mints.
No.
Can't imagine that happening at this facility.
No.
Very professional.
Yeah. Very clean. I mean, every hospital should be clean.
Yeah. This one is
very
notably,
clean.
yes, it's sterile, which
Right.
is good. Not like the dark, seedy operating rooms they had on Marcus Welby. He just let that thing go to pot.
Back alley operations. and then Gannon said something about faith, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I think it was an inoffensive way of diffusing any potential complaints from religious viewers. I think.
Yeah.
Like I think they sort of gave an easy way out for everybody because Marjoe doesn't really. It seems like there's room for reconciliation with his father.
Yeah.
Marjoe and his wife are fine. Gannon doesn't really have any problem with them. He got to save his patient, and I think they come up. It looks like there's a way for real faith to coexist with science, and it's definitely pointed out that in not too extreme a way that like you said, that these are grifters and not real.
Right.
People of the cloth. I mean, by kind of doing it like that, I think they kind of avoided, hopefully on their point of view. It might have been controversial at the time. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Just the very fact that you're sort of, but by sort of making it non-denominational and not getting too specific with the religious or with the religion angle, They probably walked that line pretty well. You know, from their point of view, if you're looking for something a little bit more shocking or more in depth, you don't necessarily get it in this episode.
There's one scene I kind of like when the event is going on. Gannon and what's the mentor's name?
James Daly Lochner.
Okay. Anyway, they're watching it. I didn't know if they were in the office or at his home.
Right.
But so he's like sitting on this huge couch.
Yeah.
And then like Gannon's sitting on a footstool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like hunched over, just staring at the TV. Well, that's an interesting.
Yeah, it's either kind of a lame den or a really awesome office. One
right.
of the two.
Yeah, I like the way he was sitting. Maybe it's just he was so intense about it that he couldn't just sit on the couch.
Yeah.
He had to be up close on this footstool.
Yeah, that's danger though. Sitting on a footstool, Gannon might wind up causing a spinal problem of his own if he falls off it.
Yeah, I mean, even doctors aren't always perfect about their health.
I've said to my kids many times, it's a footstool, not a butt stool. Encourage them to use it properly. So a little disappointed in Gannon there.
Yeah.
I guess it goes to show he's not so perfect after all.
And sitting close to the TV.
That's right. Yeah.
That's not smart.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we saw the TV. Maybe we did, but I'm sure it's
yeah,
about as nice a TV as you could have then.
Right.
Or a doctor's.
One of those, big cabinet, small screen kind of deals, I think.
Right.
Like it probably took 5 guys to bring that into that office.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard to find a lot of information about Medical Center. It's cool that Warner has put out the whole series, so all 7 seasons are on DVD. But try to look around and kind of find more about the genesis of the show, and I didn't find a whole lot of information. It was based. There was a pilot movie in 1969 was when the pilot movie aired, and it was called just UMC for University Medical Center. Now it's been renamed Operation Heartbeat for video, or maybe that was the alternate title at the end. But do you know who was in the original movie, playing a character who I think it's a different character than was in the series. Edward G. Robinson was in the pilot movie, and the Joe Gannon character was not played by Chad Everett. It was played by somebody named Richard Bradford. No relation to the 8 is Enough clan.
No.
But so that's where this thing started, and I guess that did well enough that they went ahead and went to series, and I don't know exactly why, but Chad Everett stepped into the role, and there was something the pilot movie involves, and that's been on Warner Archive Instant too, and is also on DVD. But the pilot movie involves something like Edward G. Robinson he's an older doctor that receives a heart transplant, and there's some kind of like dispute with like a family member and that kind of thing. So,
and then Gannon helps a female patient murder her husband.
Yes, of course.
And Edward G. Robinson catches him.
Yeah.
I've seen that movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of snappy dialogue in that one.
Yeah.
Not sure why that didn't make it into the series, but
right.
I guess they kind of, used it all up in the pilot movie.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I said, it's not a show I'd sit down and watch a bunch of episodes at a time, unless they all had Marjoe, and I'd probably watch them all.
Yeah. Although you have sat down over time and watched a number of episodes.
I have, and one of the most famous episodes. Should I mention this?
I think you should.
Let me tell you. Yes, they started the 7th season with an episode that, when I say Marcus Welby, I'm pretty confident that Marcus Welby never did an episode where Robert Reed from the Brady Bunch asked to have a sex change operation. Medical Center did. So if you're talking about, edginess, Medical Center 1, Marcus Welby 0.
Yeah.
And that's a 2-part episode. And yeah, at the time, that was pretty unheard of on network television, I think.
Yeah.
It was just kind of starting to be a thing with, the whole jokes about getting surgery in Sweden and, Dr. Renee Richards and everything. But yes, Robert Reed plays a renowned vascular surgeon, in fact, who wants to get this with a wife and kid, with a wife and actually a teenage son that don't understand it, and Gannon's his friend that has to, counsel him.
Yeah.
So he needs approval to get the surgery, though. So Gannon, and this is kind of where Gannon's going to this commission, Gannon's kind of advocating for him because Robert, it's a dangerous procedure.
Yeah.
And
Is Gannon going to do the procedure?
he's kind of asking him to do it, although he wouldn't be primary on it.
Oh, okay.
They actually say there's somebody else that, because it falls under so-and-so, plastic surgeon, there's a plastic surgeon that they say, but they actually name like 3 people in this when the board is talking about it who would be responsible for it.
Yeah.
Gannon's kind of just more as advocate and stuff, but not as much of one, because he's got concerns, as Robert Reed would like. But the thing is, they find in the initial checkup, they find that Robert Reed's got like a heart condition that makes him a poor candidate for the surgery. So at first, Gannon's kind of reluctant, and Robert Reed is disappointed that his friend isn't sticking up for him. And
Yeah.
but because for him, but Gannon ultimately argues that, hey, he could die during surgery, but he's dying right now a slow death by, not living in his own body or something
Right,
like that.
yeah. Huh.
So it's quite an episode. Yeah. If you see one episode of Medical Center, I'd recommend,
Those 2.
yeah, and Marjoe as well, of course.
Yeah.
But and there's a first season one with O.J. Simpson. They had a lot of guest stars over the years. That format, as you can imagine, there were a lot of notable guest stars. Martin Sheen, William Shatner, plenty of people. So
That brings up something I was going to say, and I think we've talked about it before, but I mean, this style of show where it's almost as much about the guest stars
yeah,
just isn't quite a thing anymore. I mean, even the medical shows that are around, or the lawyer shows, or whatever, they have like these huge casts.
right. Like Grey's Anatomy, Law and Order.
Yeah, like House seems like almost the perfect example of what this kind of show could be, or fitting that mold in a way. But then he had like a whole team, and it was all about
Right.
his personality and.
And every now and then, if you had a special, it would be like a sweep star, but they would make a big deal out of it, which proves your point. Like, it wasn't normally about the guest stars.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, it was kind of like...
And like ER, I mean, I think other than like when they had, I don't know, Sally Field or Alan Alda or somebody playing somebody's parent, like the patients were more, it was more like they were character actors.
Right.
And some of them went on to do other things, partly from that work, but it wasn't, oh, here, here's this person this week.
Yeah, and when
here's
they
Martin
did,
Sheen.
Yeah, when they did, it was like a big event that they would make
Yeah.
a big deal out of.
Right, and even like the sort of CBS procedural shows, like those have, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 cast members.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were doing that back then, it would probably be like 2.
Yeah.
Or maybe 3.
Well, and even like I'm a big fan of Dr. Kildare from the 60s, and that's kind of, it's got like a younger doctor, the dynamic with the older,
Gillespie.
Yes, Gillespie. I was thinking with Raymond Massey and Richard Chamberlain, they had this young dynamic, and it really focused on the 2 of them, although there were recurring characters. But yeah, it's the same kind of deal, and it was a lot of the characterization was in the form of these guest stars of the week that would come in and have their cases. So yeah, they don't really use this approach that much anymore.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I mean, I like that. I don't know if I like the show, but
Yeah, it gives. I think if they gave like a little bit more flavor to some of the leads in this show, it would be a little different. And yeah, I don't know. To me, I prefer some of those other medical dramas. Like Dr. Kildare, I think is very interesting. It's been a while since I've seen. Trapper John was not a show I grew up on.
No.
Maybe we'll get to Trapper John someday.
maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I know. We've talked about maybe talking about St. Elsewhere at some point.
Yeah, I think Trapper John, I think had more. It was sort of issue of the week, but it also had like more of an ensemble, and it was more about. I think it got more into their personal lives.
Yeah.
Like, definitely. There's Medical Center, just like, okay, here's doctor taking care of people.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, the only time he leaves the medical center is to go, other than maybe being at the guy's house, when he goes to the stadium to try to convince Marjoe
Yeah.
to let him do what he needs to do. But that stadium's on the campus.
Yeah, as far as I know, you don't see a lot of like Joe Gannon's bachelor pad.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to mention, another interesting episode, and I'll link to this, in the show notes and everything. But this is something that was interesting. There's a blog called the Classic TV History Blog by Stephen Bowie, who I think is like a freelance writer and has done many excellent reviews and articles about TV history. Well, he wrote a very detailed explanation of something that happened in the show's run. There was an episode called Countdown, and this is kind of interesting. They actually shot 3 endings for this episode, and of all people, Stanley Milgram, who was responsible for like a lot of famous sociological experiments, like involving human behavior, he got CBS to agree to kind of manipulate the shows in order so he could conduct an experiment. And what it was, there was like a thief who had to make money to save a family member or something like that. He was faced with like a moral dilemma whether to steal like charity money or not. And they did an ending where he decides not to do anything at all. He does quote unquote the right thing. There's an ending where he does the wrong thing, takes the money and gets away with it. I guess almost like it was described in this blog article as a noirish kind of ending. There's like a chase and he gets away to Mexico. And then there's an ending where he steals it, but justice ultimately prevails because he gets caught. So they shot these different endings and they did different experiments as far as showing it to people, but they also like aired it like in the summer rerun season. They showed this episode with like the New York market got one ending and the St. Louis market got another ending. And they had like these control things where they showed some people like a different, like a regular episode of Medical Center. I'd recommend you check this out. Wow. It's very fascinating. Of all shows like Medical Center, this is a very interesting thing to me. And I guess on the I haven't watched the episode yet, but they show the alternate, at least one of the alternate endings on the streaming version. I think on the DVD they have an ending, and kind of like they explain it in the DVD set, but this post really went into the whole thing and kind of explaining Stanley Milgram and how this actually worked. Can you imagine this happening today? I mean, where I guess one of the reasons CBS did it presumably was because it was like in the summer and didn't have a lot going on. And one of the reasons I guess from the show's standpoint, they got a big budget. They got this influx of money to shoot the extra endings. And because they had the bigger budget, they could do more things in the episode. But it's a fascinating account of like who knew that this kind of thing ever happened at all, really.
And at what point did they reveal this to the public?
I don't think they ever made a big deal out of saying, "Hey, this is what we did." I think they maybe told to the people in the survey. But I think a lot of this information came from like
Marjoe's leaving.
Oh, yeah. See you, Marjoe. Sorry. We moved on from you. Like, a lot of this information came from, like, biographies of Stanley Milgram and things like that. And I don't think it was ever really discussed that much. I think it was just something. And now today, this would be a big deal.
Right.
It would be talked about. But in the mid-'70s, I guess they could sort of get away with it. And it wouldn't, as a one-time thing, it wouldn't be talked about that much. I don't know if they really did make a big announcement about it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So Medical Center was used as a basis for a sociological experiment. And what they found, it was also, I guess Milgram was exploring violence in television, and I think one of the rationales for CBS was that maybe they'll find something that there is no direct correlation between. And I think there was a lot of variables, and it's hard to say, but they didn't find much of a link. And in fact, I think the idea would be, well, maybe people that see the antisocial ending will be more likely to commit the crime, because what they did was they set up some kind of situation where people that had watched the video or watched a certain ending would be in a situation that was similar to what they had seen in the episode, where there would be money left out from a charity that they could take or not take, which you would think, as I think Stephen Bowie points out in his article, you would think that people would think something was up, or like a candid camera or something, if they'd recently seen a medical center with the same kind of scenario, and then it just happened to come across them in their real life. So you'd think that maybe there's a little bias there in how they did the experiment, but it's interesting that they did it. I'm interested to watch that episode now. This is not the kind of thing that they were doing on Chips, I'll tell you that.
That's true, unless the whole thing was a sociological experiment.
If so, I wonder what they found.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Does people drive safer if they've watched Chips?
Could be, yeah. I don't know, but so Medical Center, not just a run-of-the-mill medical drama, but a sociological experiment.
Right.
I wanted to thank you for indulging me. I just wanted to mention that story because I think it's one of the more interesting things about a show that I'd never heard of in this story. Is certainly an odd, offbeat piece of TV history.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Well, you're welcome. I may have offended Marjoe, who took off apparently in the middle of it and kind of distracted me, but we'll make it up to him. He's still around, by the way.
Yeah. That's good. What is he doing? Doesn't he have... I looked that up before. I think he has a charity or something.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems like... Oh, I guess we could mention, I think he retired from acting years ago.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know what he's up to.
Yeah.
The Marjoe... You think he's got like a Marjoe Foundation or something?
I think so. Or it might have to do with animals or something. I don't know. Just... Maybe it's all about his hair.
Yeah. Wait a minute, his hair?
Keeping his hair.
Or maybe giving like thick curly manes of hair to underprivileged children that don't have his kind of hair.
Yeah, that could be.
That would be a noble cause. That would make up for all the wrong he had done early in his life if he could do that.
Right.
But he's definitely makes this one worth watching. I liked his performance a lot in this.
He's still got a full head of hair.
Good for him.
Pictures. Oh yeah, there's some footage of him as a kid there. Let's see.
So while our
gave up acting and began producing celebrity sporting events to raise money for charity. 2017, actor and writer Brian Osborne, Philadelphia Live Arts Festival commissioned actor and writer Brian Osborne to write a one-man play about Gortner.
Ooh.
The play, The Word, premiered at a thing. Yeah, so I guess he's busy doing these charity sporting events. Not a lot of detail on that. Oh, wait. Until 2009, he produced celebrity sports invitational charity golf tournaments and ski events to raise money for charities such as the Dream Foundation, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Waterkeeper Alliance, and he retired in 2010.
Well, good for him.
I guess he's just
living a quiet life.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. This is kind of an elephant in the room we have not addressed yet. Do you think that, they have a happy ending in this episode? Do you think that Meredith Baxter's character divorces Marjoe and then goes on to marry a PBS employee in Ohio and raise several children successfully?
I'm not sure the timeline would work out.
Well, Elise Keaton grew up in the 60s. Was a hippie.
There's that, but I believe...
so, yes, you're right.
Alex would have already been alive when this...
You're right.
aired.
Okay,
yeah.
that's a relief. I didn't want to think that Elise...
He's a child of the 60s, born in the 60s.
Elise Keaton was a hardcore drug addict.
No. Yeah, I don't want to think... I assume they were clean-living hippies.
Yeah. They were the clean-living hippies.
Right. Straight-edge hippies.
Good for them.
A little beer or something now and then.
Yeah.
We know they had beer in the house, but...
Okay, well, that's good to know.
That is good to know.
I'm glad I brought it up then, because you've...
I mean, unless she had met him, the PBS guy, in the 60s, had the baby, given him to the PBS guy for a while, gone off and married. I think that's...
It's
definitely not in the opening credits of Family Ties. So,
yeah. It's not canon.
Yeah. And I don't know when she would have had time to become an architect.
Yeah, that's a good point. She's clearly not an architect in this episode of Medical Center.
Yeah.
She makes no mention of that at all. Doesn't do any sketching.
No. This thought just came to me. How great would have it been if Marjoe had been on a Family Ties episode?
Oh, it would have been fantastic. Who could he have been, you think?
I don't know. Anybody.
Like a family member?
Been a family member. He could have been... he could have gone along the lines of this and been... He could have been a politician.
Oh, that would have been good.
Maybe like somebody like Alex works for this politician that he idolizes.
Oh, that would be good. And he finds out he's a false idol.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a... he also could have been like a fundraiser for PBS or public television, like a national fundraiser, or a guy coming in to tape a local special.
Yeah.
And they're going to do it as a pledge drive, and Steven's like in charge of organizing it.
Right. Yeah.
I think anything that pairing Marjoe with Michael J. Fox would be a winner.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's an excellent idea. Another one on our list of BOTNS star crossovers that never happened but should have.
Right.
We're only tantalizing the people with this.
Yeah. All right. We're ready to close the file in this case, right?
Yeah, I say I'm ready to move on from Medical Center.
Okay.
Stat. Sorry.
Hallelujah!
This episode brought to you by Harmon's Homegrown Coffee Beans. Delivered on a buggy just like Daddy did. Also try our patented elixirs, proven to cure what ails you. This episode also brought to you by the Medical Center. Cool under pressure, cool suits, just plain cool. This episode also brought to you by Marjoe's Hair. Now that's a miracle. Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network Shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BATNetShows, and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/battleofthenetworkshows.
I can't tell you today how much I appreciate your warmth and your kindness. Just your being here today with me gives strength to my faith at a time when I need it most. Hallelujah!